Hello, hello. You hear me okay? Hi, I'm Dave Kennedy, bangline underscore, underscore. On Twitter, I'm going to talk about foundations for Assemble. Now, Assemble is a Grunt plugin for building static sites, and it's been around for quite a while, and I'm still kind of surprised, you know, there's been some good uptake, but not quite as much as I like, and it's a really interesting little library, so I'm going to want to talk a little bit more about that today. I work for One Part Carbon, based here in Edinburgh. Really interesting little company as well, been growing. A couple of products which we make, Velocity Light, which is hardware, and the Capasa application project software, collaborative software project management. That's just kicking off just now. We are hiring, I'll just get that out of the way now, so if your sounds interesting, come speak to me. Glasgow JS, I've been given this platform, may as well try it. You know, promote myself, well, not myself, the community. Been running Glasgow JS for the last 2 years, and it's going really well, this year in particular, and we're always looking for people to come and talk to us. We've had some really good names like Yehuda Katz, had Jan Lenhart, remote friendly, so as long as time zones allow, by all means, come speak to me, or don't be offended if I ask you later on. So going back to Assemble, I think it's worth going back to kind of how I got into the whole web development. I mean, I was an engineer previously, and started getting a bit interested in this web development techniques and applications, and I didn't know HTML, didn't know CSS, certainly didn't know JavaScript, so went to W3 Schools, copy, pasted some blocks, got some content, made a web page. Yay. And needed another page, so I copy and I pasted, changed the content, updated the navigation. Then I needed another page, and another page, and another page, and it just became unwieldy. And at the time there was a tool, Dreamweaver, which was kind of let you template this kind of stuff, but I couldn't afford that on what was then was a hobby, so I was one of these guys, made with Notepad kind of guy. But I knew that building these pages was just not right. Wasn't the way I was doing it. It was a lot of duplication in what I was doing. So I got into PHP, which kind of let me build up these composite layouts, which we're all pretty much familiar with these days. You know, I could include other PHP scripts. I'd have one navigation, one header. Yeah, we all know that kind of stuff. And that's pretty much standard stuff these days. When you come to a new framework, you're going to get that nice kind of composite layout views and dropping in your other components. And it kind of takes us back to the simplest thing that works. And this is the static site in itself, because ultimately if we're building web applications, what we're essentially trying to do is get content from our server. So the content being text, images, scripts, CSS, getting that from our server and dropping it in somebody's browser. And the simplest thing that works really is that static page that lives on the website. And static sites are just, I've got a real love with them just now. I mean, who runs their own blogs here? And who's using things like WordPress and all that kind of jazz? Not as many as I thought there was. So, and it kind of came about last year when I was wanting to build, you know, start blogging as infrequently as I am now. And I just didn't want to get into the nitty-gritty of setting up databases, getting hosting which supports whatever CMS I want to use. And to be honest, I didn't need it, because I just wanted to get text on a page and some content out there. And static sites do that for me. They also, when it comes to, say I got a big load of hits, I mean, these things scale crazily when you put it onto any kind of web server. Any web server worth its salt will just serve this cache static pages all day. You can put it on things like S3, so that removes the server out of there. You can CloudFront that data, and wow, I don't even need a web server. I can put things on Dropbox and serve my static pages from Dropbox. And there are a couple of trade-offs that, like if you need any kind of dynamic elements such as comments or feedback forms, that's kind of dropping into other services. But I'm okay with that kind of thing on something as simple as a blog. So coming back to the simplest thing that works, obviously going back to our notepads, copy pasting content doesn't quite work. And that simplest thing that works is a kind of an XP phrase that's saying get the simplest thing possible that works. But if we think about it this way, this is from Henry Mencken, famous American author, the simplest thing, intuitively we know, isn't always the right answer. And in the same XP interview with Kent Beckelot, they quote Einstein saying it's to be as simple as possible, but no simpler, which I think kind of sums up the whole concept of static sites using a generator such as Assemble. You'll probably be more familiar with things like Jekyll and Middleman, I believe, and they're all kind of Ruby-based tooling. But Jekyll in particular is far more opinionated, and if you've got any experience with Middleman where you kind of customise and it has no opinions on like how you lay out your static sites, Assemble's in that kind of vein. This is where you'll get all the information that you kind of need to know about Assemble. There's Assemble.io documentation, the GitHub account and Twitter feed. It was created by this chap, John Shinkler and Brian Woodward, those two big guys. And down the bottom, the contributors are growing. I'm currently an active member within this project as well, just recently found out. And it kind of, in preparation for this talk, I got into contact with John, Brian, and kind of, some probing questions as to why they wanted to build a static site generator. It turns out they had the same problems that we are addressing just now with Assemble, and that's why Assemble was created. And it isn't static sites. They were building components, and John is a designer, front-end developer. He's now a designer, front-end developer guy, and Brian is a very experienced back-end developer. And they had felt the workflow between the two of them was quite clunky. And John's got a background in supply chain management and consulting. And he gave me this quote here. I'll let you read that. And this really kind of summed up what they were doing, because John wanted to design things and get his components into a reusable chunk that Brian could then pull all these bits into the application which they were building. It was a MVP going for VC funding type thing. And at One Part Carbon, we're using this very technique just now because we've got a designer, front-end developer and a back-end developer, and using Assemble to build up these little kind of component libraries of HTML, that gives us all this common vocabulary. It's like we're being given the right information, and we can all carry on with our jobs in a kind of autonomous way without having to question or worry about the expertise of the person next to us in the kind of chain of flow. So Assemble itself is a Grunt plugin. So you install it through your normal means. It's just now, it is a Grunt plugin. That's changing soon, but I'll get into what's coming up sooner. As I said, it's totally blog unaware, so I decided on this kind of structure, where I have content. I like to write my content in Markdown. Data, which is a kind of a collection of metadata for your site. So I might have a site title or description or any other piece of text, like a link off to an email thing. I can store that in JSON, or I can store that in YAML, whichever one you feel like. Public and the assets, obviously they're just there because that's what will get served along and built into these other pages. And then our templates, and here we can begin to see that kind of composite view which we are going to build up. We'll have a layout, inside layouts, and a number of reusable components within partials. The Grunt file itself uses a pretty standard layout as well. Here is my options block. So this, you can see assets. I'm just defining this constant truth, and I can use a helper down the line where it can say, right, you will find all my assets at X directory, telling it where to find my data, partials, layouts, and whatnot. And that's a kind of a standard grunty configuration where I'm saying, right, take everything from this place and do your work in this place. So the layout itself, you can see handlebars. Who uses handlebars here? Yeah, cool. In my opinion, it's a brilliant template language. It's a superior one out of them all. And there we can see a little bit of metadata at the top, the title, that assets helper, which I was talking about, a description, that's another piece of metadata. Navigation partial, and then I've got another helper in there which is saying treat all content you receive as Markdown and parse it accordingly into HTML. As I mentioned before, we're talking about the metadata. And I mean, this is a single file. What Assemble's really, really good at is knowing the context in which it's being assembled. For any given page, it's going to pull on metadata from that top level data file. You can define data within the file itself. I've got an example of that coming up actually. And even the partials will evaluate this kind of metadata from all around the place as well. And it just seems to know exactly what the context in which it's being assembled in. So here's one of the navigations. So there's a site name, that's something which I've defined up in the data.json file. Another partial there, which is the talk table of contents. And basically it's just building a link. We've got a helper down at the bottom here in the talk HBS, which is basically looping the pages, because it's, again, it knows it's building a collection of pages. It's taking a base name of it and data titles. Now this one's prefixed with data title. So this is me actually asking for the piece of data from the template in which the piece of content that I am currently assembling. And there's my data.json site name, yellow assemble. And here's a little piece of content which I've created in the Markdown format. And you'll see the bit I've highlighted there is what's called the YAML front matter. So if you've been using Jekyll at all, that should look very familiar. And basically anything at the top of a file which looks like YAML, or you can get a JSON front matter as an XML front matter as well for that matter. It will just work that out first, and that's what it uses to build this context of all your stuff. So putting all that together looks something like this. Just assembled the pages, it's just bringing up what we've done. And you can see like it's made all these file names and it's made a navigation out of all of that. And then you'll see a reuse of the talk handlebars template actually within my content. And yeah, it just works. So going back to what we're talking about, the simplest thing that works, and the simple not always meaning being really simple. I mean, Assemble does a lot of work under the hood. It's not just stitching together like PHP include statements, knowing about all this context. But what I really like about it is it's the API, that configuration block, that's all really intuitive and really simple to get things going. And then as developers, we're always kind of breaking down our problems, so why not apply the same to like even static content? Where it's being used just now, you'll recognise these guys on the right, definitely. So Zub Foundation are using Assemble to build their documentation, and similarly, so is Less. And that's one of the real strengths that I see Assemble performing and applying it straight to. So we, even at One Part Carbon, we keep a lot of documentation within the docs directories within a Rails app. Basically, I can drop in a grunt file, run it, and then we have a full documentation of our project at a current state. And it's not documentation that's in such specs and stuff like that. It's more along the lines of, this is how you get this set up, might be a solutions log. So Assemble's kind of helping us within smaller kind of tool chains as well. The other ones there, Capacitors, our next product we are building. And it's Assemble, as I said, is kind of letting that supply chain between the designer to the back-end developer with the front-end developer in the middle, which gives us that kind of common platform and vocabulary to start building out all our components. Version 0.5. Now, I've mentioned that it's a Grunt plugin. That has now changed completely, and now its own node module, which is something which I know the guys have been wanting to do for a long time. It's something which I am really interested in, because there's no reason why Assemble has to be tied so tightly to Grunt. I want to use things like Broccoli, if Jolis is in here yet? No. So I want to use other tools, and I know there's a big push from the Gulp community to use assemble in well. So that's happened in 0.5, and there's a couple of examples if you go to GitHub repo, if you want to use this with Gulp. You don't even need to use it with Gulp, or Broccoli, or Grunt. Assemble will actually do this on its own. It's its own node module, so you can take that template, and what it's taking is this options block, your configuration, you tell it where to set up, and get all the things it needs to build your static content, and it will just do it. We're kind of a little bit quicker than normal, but it would be good, speeding up, it would be good for everyone to get involved. Actually, speaking to the guy, John and Brian, they're really, really interested to hear how people are using Assemble, because certainly static sites I've kind of went on about, but I hope I've got across that Assemble isn't just applying that kind of thing to static sites. You can build up components, you can share vocabulary across functional teams. All these things I've seen Assemble apply to are not necessarily static sites. I mean, I've seen it sell used cars, stitching together Parlex sites, just sharing data across in the context of it. So by all means, if you can get in touch with myself, John or Brian, come speak to me in a discussion track if it sounds like something you want to be involved in. And yeah, I am 3 minutes short of time, man. So, but no more to go. Cheers.